Hey Maria, how you doing?
Hi, Albert. I'm great. I am living the dream. How are you?
I'm doing great also, thank you. I am really excited because I saw Off the Grid and I absolutely loved it. I felt like it was a different kind of action movie. For me, it was the smart action movie because you have a guy who doesn't really know how to fight or anything like that. It wasn't the typical Hollywood action hero. You have a guy who's using more of the brains rather than the brawn. And I gotta say, hands down, your performance was great at it as well.
Thank you so much. I mean, we were just a group of people of real human beings. Johnny made sure and he called every one of us to have discussions and conversations about our family, our morals. He really made sure that the soul and the vibe of the general like cast and everyone around, including crew, everyone were good human beings. And I think that's also one thing that adds so much soul to a movie that's, obviously about bombs and special effects, but also the way it's written, it adds a lot to the human connections and it makes it the connections and the emotions and the vulnerability that he finds himself within this town filled with people that actually cared about him. Uh, that adds a layer of soul. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I'm thankful that you noticed that as well and you felt it. That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I liked was that despite, it feels like you could have been the typical love interest of sorts, but you weren't. And that's what I really liked. I like that it went a different route because, I like like today's action films, I like the fact that when they go try something different rather than your typical recycled tropes. And here here you are as this like a restaurateur type who's just there for him, as like someone he can rely on in time of need. And my first question is, what attracted you to take on the role of Josey?
Definitely that exactly what you're mentioning. Like when I read the script, I'm like, okay, this is an action movie. It's a smart movie. I love that because I consider myself a smart audience, and I'm usually not that driven to go to the like to see action films. But when I started to see that component of human connection being such a big part of the narrative and understanding my character as kind of like a vortex for the community in the sense of holding that community love together, using that like kind of tough love, which later became Latino love, but it was initially she was Italian, then Spanish. But they're all in that sense very motherly and very tough loving, but very sweet. And I, but I also always felt like she had some secrets of her own. There was some mystic between these two characters. Like, what are your secrets? What are mine? Like, what am I doing here? Like, there's a lot of internal stuff that I could build into this character that maybe the audience will never find out about, but it adds some layers to also this mystery within this kind of out there and extra Latino character. So the fact that Johnny was willing to work with me from scratch and add and create a story and kind of understand the character from within, even though he should be focused on the guys and the bombs, but he gave just the same amount of interest and he invested enough energy in Josie to create a real, like, soulful character that it was the story, but also the way that Johnny was portraying her and how he wanted to direct Josie when we had the conversation after the audition that I thought was going to be like my callback, but it was just him finding out because he already had decided that he wanted to work with me, but he wanted to find out if I was a good person or whatever, which was amazing. Like I couldn't even believe that was a filter for him. But the fact that he was really considering her a female lead and the character responsible for human connections and vulnerability in the film, I felt compelled and I definitely wanted to do it.
Yeah, and one thing was your chemistry with Josh Duhamel was amazing in this film. Like as I mentioned, it wasn't really a romantic type thing at first. It was like, you both are like fish out of water. You guys have something in common, and that's what really worked. Like you guys had that connection where you're both coming from different places, but here you are together in this one small town. And I gotta ask, what was it like working with Josh?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you're capturing it so perfectly because it's usually when I see action films, it's almost like sexual chemistry, like just
Yeah,
sexual attraction and like
exactly.
the tension and hot people just, recognizing themselves as hot and feeling the other's hotness and too basic. This was a little
Yeah.
more complex. And I was a little scared and intimidated to work with Josh. I mean, obviously, I've seen him in so many movies, and he's so tall and so handsome and so talented and such a big star. And here I am doing my first film. Is he going to be kind of like, or is he gonna allow me to maybe play and create with him? Because I feel like, given the fact that this connection was so complex within the realms of like, we don't need to speak that much, but we recognize, we see each other in our struggles, in our demons. You also need the capacity to improvise a little, to try different things and to play. And Johnny was all about that. But I was wondering if Josh was down to do that and if he was going to be a good sport. And man, was he like the most generous, playful, but also super disciplined. Like he just wrote a lot. He brought a lot of options. He really wanted to reshape. He was also producing. So he was his movie as well. And he wanted to make, like, he was a perfectionist, but also a very generous person where he understood that if he gave me that amount of freedom, and he also believed in me a lot. Like from the first moment we worked together, he was just very adamant, and he expressed himself about how he liked my work. So that empowered me as well. The fact that he was like, "You're so good. I'm so glad we waited for you," because there were some issues around my character. It was going to be replaced. It never happened, thank God. But then he was like, "Oh my God, I do not regret having fought for you. You're amazing." So this just made me feel like I'm at the level. And then working with him and redesigning these characters together, and they let us do, like, Johnny was just so generous. I even told James Agnew, the writer, like, thank you for not having a big writer's ego, because we kind of did what we wanted with, like, the not the whole story, but the tiny bits like that made it different, that added flavor. We had all the freedom to change it and to modify it throughout the day. So it was really good to be able to play, because I at this point in my career have so many tools when I am given that freedom. If I'm like restricted and like, I don't fly that well. So I felt myself. I felt free. Josh Gregg too. He was so generous. He was so concerned about my acting. He knew I needed to shine in order for him to shine. Everything was just surreal. Like I could keep going forever. They were all just very generous and beautiful human beings.
Well, I will say this quickly before we wrap up. I hope that maybe if there's going to be a sequel to this, should this happen, maybe we'll learn more about Josey in that one. So, praying that that's a possibility.
Praying for that. I mean, I can't say anything. I've heard some stuff. There's nothing confirmed. There's nothing that I can really talk about. But yes, I am praying to the Virgencita. So let's wait and see.
All right. Well, everyone, Off the Grid will be out this Friday. Definitely check it out. As an action movie like you haven't seen. It's the smart action film, I call it. And Maria, you're awesome in it, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it.
Thank you so much, Albert, for the time and the support in helping amplify your message.
Well, you stay awesome as always. Take care.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.